Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Nomadic Divine Strange Love podcast. Today I'm going to be talking about guns in America. Are they more helpful or more dangerous? What do you think? That's what I'm going to be talking about. Part one, I'm going to be talking about it a lot, but actually section one, but in another section, section two, I'm going to be talking about Malcolm X again. Because that's ultimately what inspired me to do this podcast. So I want to talk about him again today. Yeah. So the scripture of the day is Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1 through 1, 23 through 25. I'm going to read it right now. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. By faith, Moses, when he was born, was hid 3 months of his parents, because they saw he was a proper child, and they were not afraid of the king's commandment. By faith, Moses, when he was come to years, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season. So, that is the scripture of the day. And I'm gonna start reading about guns and my thoughts. But as I continue, you might get an idea of why I chose that scripture of the day. The first subheading: Are guns necessary? Well, in my opinion, no, they're not necessary to live a safe life. It is my firm belief that individuals are more at risk when they either own or carry guns. Even if they are cautious or trained to use guns, accidents can still occur. And I just think a person is taking a risk when they purchase a gun. It's just my opinion. What about self-defense? Well, there are many ways that a person can defend themselves without using any weapons. I have learned that the better one can communicate effectively, the chances of them being physically harmed will be little to none. Learning how to de-escalate a situation with the right words can truly impact that other person in a positive way, causing the outcome to be peaceful. So, if you're talking to somebody and you say the wrong thing, they get angry and now they want to hurt you or hit you. So sometimes it's how not really what we say, but sometimes it's how we say it that makes a difference in how the outcome will be, as far as someone wanting to hurt you. So when we talk about self-defense, it's like, well, let's try to put our reading glasses on and educate ourselves to learn how to communicate better so we can avoid conflict with people. Uh, what does history teach us? Well, uh, I did some brief research about just trying to find the statistics on the gun deaths that we have in America. And according to the AI review, it shows that in the year 2023, there were 46,728 gun deaths. That's just in that year. I'm not even talking about the last 10 years. That's what I saw for that review. For suicides, it stated that firearms are the most common method for suicide in the U.S. In 2023, 27,300 gun-related deaths were suicide. And this part was really interesting to me because, I'm sure we've all felt hopeless or helpless at some point in our life to where we just like, you know what? I just don't want to go on with my day. This, I don't like the way I feel. And I think it's a normal feeling. But I think when a person actually acts on it, then they really need to find some help. But just thinking it and feeling it and want to talk about it, that's normal. Because we live in this world. It's crazy. It's crazy out there. So I just found it. One reason why I say I found it interesting with the suicides is because if we did not have access to guns the way that we do, I really believe there will be less suicides because it probably will be less likely for a person to want to kill themselves with a knife and say, you know what, I'm about to end my life. It'd be less likely. But if you got a gun and you got a bullet inside and all you got to do is pull a trigger, that seems easier. But you got a gun and you got to stick it in, I mean, a knife, if you have a knife and you got to stab yourself with it enough times to kill yourself, that seems more difficult to do mentally. Because it's like, okay, how many times I'm going to stab myself that I could just endure this? And it just seems more difficult to me. A gun is easier. Bam. You did it. And that's probably why people, they do it. They got access to guns somehow. Okay, so I want to talk about, real quick, the U.S. Constitution. Uh, it is well known that in the Second Amendment, and I had to reread this just to refresh my memory, but the Second Amendment protects the rights of individuals to keep and bear arms, which, in other words, you can have a gun. That's what it means. You can have a gun. Uh, although we as U.S. citizens here have this right, this is my opinion, we should think carefully about purchasing or owning guns for several more reasons. And I know back in the day, like, in the 60s, after Martin Luther King died, people were very vocal about their right to vote because of the the fact that African Americans did not have the same luxuries as other race. They were limited as to what they can do. And so they start speaking up more, speaking out, and whatever right they felt like they had, they really wanted to take advantage of that. Like, okay, I have the right to vote, so I want to vote. And so when it comes to rights, it's like, yes, I got a right to do this. It's like, yeah, you do have a right, but you don't have to. That doesn't mean that that's the solution. So, like, we got a right to bear arms and have that choice, but that does that mean that's the best solution? Because you have a right, but it's a personal choice. Uh, there's been some assassinations in the U.S., and I wanted to mention a few of them of some well-known people that I'm sure you have heard of before. With the President John F. Kennedy, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., and Abraham Lincoln. Those are four names that I'm sure you've learned about in high school. I'm sure we've all learned about those people. And they were all shot. Some kind of gun. They were shot and killed. And I've been meditating a lot about assassinations, thinking about Malcolm X a lot because I'm just very in tune with his story. Just trying to understand how a person, and I'm going to talk about this a little later in this episode, but thinking about how can one avoid being assassinated? Like, yeah, I want to go back into history It's like I want to go back in time and try to figure out, okay, how could that person have avoided that assassination? How could he, how could he have prevented it from happening? It had to be a way. But it happened for a reason. But I want to go more into depth about that. There's a scripture I would like to read. Scripture. Uh, da, da, da. And it's regarding the use of weapons in the book of Matthew, chapter 26, verse 52. If you have a Bible, please get it out. If you don't, Google. You can Google it. Thank you, Lord, for Google. Let's see. 26:52. Oh. Then said Jesus unto him, Put up again thy sword into his place, for all they that take the sword shall perish with the sword. And if you are not aware of this story, this is when Jesus was already betrayed and about to get arrested, and Peter was upset. He was trying to defend his friend. He was trying to defend Jesus, and he took his sword and cut off the ear of one of the Roman soldiers. And I'm sure that made Jesus feel good in some kind of way, like, oh, you defended me. But at the same time, he was trying to protect Peter by saying, no, don't do that. Because he knows God's word. He knows what that means. Like when you take out a weapon and you use it on someone, it's possible it could happen back again to you. It might not be at that time. It might not even be with that person, but it might happen another time. Someone take their sword out, slice your ear off, and then you might think back like, dang, I did do that. Because that's how it works. And Jesus knew that. So that's why he was telling Peter, he was trying to protect his friend, like, hey, put that back. Because you live by the sword, you die by the sword. That's what he was saying. Um, I think of that scripture a lot when it comes to like weapons and assassinations. I'll be thinking like, dang, okay, these people got assassinated. Did they? And then my first thought is, did they own a gun? Did they own any weapons? What gave another person a right to actually shoot them like that? Because I know how powerful God is, and I know what He allows and what He doesn't allow. So when something serious like that happens, I do be thinking, like, I hate to say it, but I be thinking, what did they do? What did they do first to cause somebody to shoot at them? That's what I be thinking. And then when I do find out that they own a gun, then I'm like, oh, see, I knew it. See, that's what I be thinking. Oh, so they own a gun. Then I be thinking, did they ever use that gun? And if they did, like, let's say someone just shot at them, they got real upset and they were fearful of their life, and they grabbed some automatic guns and just start shooting everywhere because they upset. And then one day somebody else does it and they start shooting everywhere towards that person they so happen to get shot. I would think it happened because of them doing it. And let's say they didn't even kill anybody. The fact that they were so careless with that gun and F all of y'all. And then it happens to them a year later or something like that. You know, that's what I believe. However, there are other factors that play into these assassinations, which I'm going to get into. It's not just the gun alone. There are events that leads up to a person, like I said, feeling like they have the right to assassinate someone. There are events that can lead up to that point, which I want to talk about. Let's see, the events. I think I want to get into that later. Yeah. Americans living in fear. Oftentimes, I hear people encourage the use of weapons for protection, weapons such as pepper spray, taser, or gun, knife. Watching the news and hearing the latest stabbing or shooting, I'm sure frightens people. Um, there was a time in my life while hearing like a fatal shootout, it did scare me, but I think it was because I was living in ignorance and I had a lack of knowledge and I wasn't that spiritually inclined to really know what was going on. And when a person is living in darkness, them hearing stuff like that probably will scare them because they're spiritually in darkness. They're not aware of other things. And the further a person is from God, the less they put their trust in Him, the more afraid they will be about the events they hear about or see on TV. You know, so if you don't have a relationship with God and you hear something on TV that scares you, well, you might want to open that Bible, and the Bible is here so we can understand how God thinks. So when you understand how He thinks and what He allows and what He doesn't allow, then it'll make more sense. Like, oh, wow, I was living in fear when I didn't have to because now I understand. I want to read, I try not to put too much scriptures in here, but I wanted to put enough, at least so you can, you know, I want y'all to get closer to God. So at least y'all can get an idea of how God feels about all this. I can tell you my opinion and how I feel about it, but I want you to know how God feels about it. So I want to turn to James 2:26. Please, I'm going to give you some time because I know y'all slow because I'm slow. I'm going to give you some time to open your Bible. James is in the back. 2:26. For as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead also. And I'll explain to you why I read that. But real quick, I want to read another scripture in Proverbs. This is a real good one. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 and 6. Proverbs 3, 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not onto your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. It's true. You know, I know when I was younger, and my grandma, she just, oh my God, she really used to annoy me when it comes to this Bible. Just it seemed like her answer for everything was always God this, God that. And it just annoyed me because I just felt like she was doing too much. Felt like she was doing too much. But honestly, God is the answer to everything. It's the truth. And, you know, when a person does trust God and they don't lean on their own understanding, like I said, then he will make their path straight. What does that mean? He will guide them in the direction which they shall go. They'll go in the right direction. They'll be more protected because they'll be living a life according to a way that's pleasing to him. So he's going to make sure they're going to be okay. That's what it means. But if we lean on our own understanding, we can get in a lot of trouble because we won't have God's protection. We'll just be thinking how we think. So when I tell you oh yeah, this is my opinion on guns, or this is my opinion about the assassination, or whatever. Just know that my opinion probably is inspired of God because I thought about Him before I even came up with that opinion. Just me understanding the scriptures and how He thinks is what uh, how I concluded to that opinion. So He had a lot to do with the way I think. It has a lot to do with God, the way He thinks. So, oh, James 2:26. So yeah, the reason why I read the body without the spirit is dead. Also, faith without works is dead. I read that because a person can have faith and they can believe, but if they don't put it into action, it's just doesn't mean anything. You know, um, yeah, it doesn't mean anything. So it's like you have to. It's like me. I'm trying to think of an example. Like right now, my priority, because I feel like I believe I'm gotten more stronger spiritually, and what I need to fix spiritually, I've gotten stronger. There are some other things that I need to fix, don't we all? But I guess my priority right now, because of that, is just focusing on my career and what I would like to do in my life, things I love to do. And so it's like a person can say, "Oh, I want to be an actress one day. I think that'll be really fun. I'm good at this and I'm good at that." But I know I can really be good at that because I know my personality. I know how, But if a person doesn't do anything about it and they expect opportunities to come to them, it probably will take them way longer to accomplish their goals. And that's something I had to meditate on. It's like, okay, you know, if you want any opportunities, or you have to go out and find them. They're not going to come to you. So that's something I had to meditate on too. Like Destiny, you have to go out and meet people, network, and it's difficult because I'm really shy. But if you want it that bad, you'll try to jump out of your comfort zone and say, okay, you know what, I'm shy, but I just gotta try. I gotta try and get out of my comfort zone. So it's the same. It's the same thing with having faith in God. Not the same thing, but it's similar. Like, okay, a person is so living in fear, they're not used to having that faith, and they're not that grounded to depend on God and not want to rely on a weapon for protection. It may take time for them to shift their personality to be like, you know what, I have to do something about this. I have to like try. And when I say try, first step is reading the Bible to understand how He thinks, and then the next step is putting it to action. Meaning, because I've heard people say, like about changing, and I think a lot of people don't know how to change. Because it's like, okay, how do you apply scriptures to your life? You can tell me this is what it means and this is what expected from me, but how do I do it? How? Well, you have to get to the point. You hear me? You got to get to the point where you feel like you've had enough. Whatever you're doing, whatever it is in your life, you just feel like, I had enough of this. I just can't do this no more. You have to reach like some kind of breaking point. I really believe a person has to go through some tragic moment or experience in their life that's going to wake them up spiritually to really feel like they need God to have that kind of faith. If they don't have that tragic event, they might not get to the point. So basically, they probably might have to lose everything in their life, even their mind. Not literally, but you know what I'm saying. Got to lose their mind, everything. They got to go through some stuff. And that's where the faith comes in. in those times. But if a person has everything they need, they rich or whatever, it may be way more difficult for them because they won't feel like they need God or need to have faith in God. They got everything. It's like, what do I need God for? I got everything I need. I don't need him. And they might not say that. They may not admit that because a lot of people won't admit it. But it's true. You'll know by the way they live in their life. You'll know. You'll know. But I'm saying this because this has a lot to do with a person having faith. Oh, and so I'm about to get into this now. The next subheading is God-fearing people rely on God for protection. People such as Moses, Noah, Jesus, and many others did not rely on weapons when they faced opposition or persecution. The difference between Moses and Jesus is when Moses went up to Pharaoh, his faith in God was strong, but it continued to get stronger the more he had to keep returning and keep trying and keep trying and keep trying. It got stronger and he got more confident in that process. But at first, he probably was like, hey, um, God told me to tell you to let his people go. And Pharaoh didn't believe nothing he was saying. He probably was like, what? I don't know what you're talking about. What God are you talking about? And I think it was the way that Moses presented himself, like, you know, yeah, I need you to let these people go, let them go, man. They suffering. He didn't believe in his God because that was when Moses was beginning to believe in God, but he wasn't that confident. But later on, he was more firm, like, hey, you need to let these people go, or else this is what God is going to do to you. Don't you get it? So when he continued to return, his attitude, he was more confident in his speech because Moses had a stuttering problem and he was actually really shy. So I know this for a fact. I know the first time he approached Pharaoh, he was not that confident and he was not that eloquent, or what's another word I can use? He just wasn't a good speaker. He didn't communicate well, and he needed his brother Aaron to help him. Hey, you know what? I don't even talk that good, man. Can you help me? Can you say this for me? Because I'm just trying to picture how he said it. Like stuff that were probably not in the Hebrew text. Hey, man, I'm afraid and I'm kind of shy, man. I gotta go up to this dude and tell him to let all these people go. He ain't gonna listen to me. Why he gonna listen to me? Look at me. Can you talk? Can you be my spokesperson or something? Can you talk for me, please? I really believe he said that. And so Aaron was more confident than Moses. Even though Moses was more God fearing, Aaron was a better speaker. Moses, that had to take time for Moses to develop that skill. He was not good at that at first. No, he's real bad. So, can you imagine him approaching Pharaoh for the first time? Pharaoh didn't believe nothing he was saying. But even when he continued to go to him and he was more confident, Pharaoh began to believe it, but he was so arrogant. He didn't want to admit that there was no one greater than him. That was his problem. He didn't want to admit, and I don't want to get too deep into this because that's not what this subject is about, but I'm saying this for a reason. Pharaoh did not want to admit that there could possibly be some kind of king or power that existed that was greater than him. He didn't want to admit it. And so he knew by letting letting Israelites go, he knew that was going to make him look weak. And then his people, Pharaoh's people, probably is going to look at him like, wow, probably want to leave too, or not believe in him as much as a king, because they would see him losing his power by this person that calls himself Moses. Um, but eventually he believed. He did all the miracles that happened. Eventually he believed. Um, but when my point of even mentioning this story is Moses had faith to approach Pharaoh. He was like a king in the most powerful, um, I would say, kingdom at that time, world power. Egypt was the greatest world power that existed at that time. So it's very intimidating for him. That's like me going to the president and demanding something from the president. I don't I don't think I would do that, because it's like, why would I? Why would I think the issue would have to be so serious. It would have to be so significant or important. If I'm just using myself as an example, because I'm trying to put myself into Moses' mind, it would have to be so serious for me to actually approach the president and say, "Look, this is a problem. This is what I need from you. I'm telling you, if you don't do it, this is what God is going to do. I ain't about to use no weapons. I ain't going to threaten you with no gun. I don't believe in all that. I'm telling you what God." It's, it seemed like it would have to take a very. It seemed like it would take a very confident person, or when I say confident, I mean someone that really believes in God. Their faith has to be that strong for them to do something like that. Because that don't seem like nothing I would do. Like I, you know. So I'm trying to imagine how Moses did it, because he was so afraid. He felt like he needed Aaron to speak for him. What man do you know is like that? Men are not usually like that. They speak for themselves and they're confident and they hold their ground, and you know what I'm saying? They want to speak so they can let the ladies know how manly they are and blah blah blah. But Moses wasn't like that. So when he approached Pharaoh, he didn't use any weapons. He didn't use no weapons. He wasn't trying to fight. He had a stick, like a staff, but staff was like a stick, like a wooden stick. But that wasn't for a weapon. I think he was. When I say I think, I believe the staff. The purpose of the staff was he was getting old. Moses is getting old, so you see a person walking with their cane. He wouldn't. I believe he was probably like 80, from what I read. He probably was about 80 the time when Pharaoh actually let the Israelites go. He was old, but he was probably a little younger. I just read this recently. Anyways, he was getting old, okay? Moses was old. And, he used it to walk with. So you see a person walking with their cane, you know, they walking with their cane. But he didn't use it. It wasn't, the purpose was not like, okay, let's gather our weapons, y'all. And we're going to go to Pharaoh with our weapons. And one of my weapons, I'm taking the stick. What you got, Aaron? That wasn't the purpose of him bringing that stick. So, and I'm just reminding y'all, he didn't even use the stick as a weapon. He didn't bring no weapons with him. His purpose with that stick was different. He was using it to walk with. That's really why he had it. You got to remember, Moses wandered in the wilderness for a while. And this was after the time he decided to denounce. He did not want to claim himself as Pharaoh's daughter. He wanted to suffer with his people and get to know God's people. So around near that time, him becoming wiser and stuff, when he ended up leaving, he had that stick with him because he was walking a lot. He was walking a lot, and the stick helped him when he was walking. That's why he had it. But he was not about to beat Pharaoh up with that stick. That's not why he had it. So what is my point? He didn't use any weapons to approach the king. So he had to have a lot of faith. Wow. To do that. And guess what? You know how the story ends. I'm sure you do. If you don't, it's in the book of Exodus. But God still makes sure that he protected Moses. And it was really, Moses had a lot. He had so much faith. So in a way, Moses was protecting himself. The closer he got to God, he was protecting himself, and he didn't even know it. But it was God's protection because of his faith in God. But he was protecting himself. If he would have leaned towards, let me find these weapons, that's leaning to his own understanding. God didn't tell him to get weapons. He told him to go to Pharaoh and demand and command him to let your people go. He didn't say, gather these weapons. That wasn't part of the command. If he would have got weapons, that would have been him leaning on his own understanding. And that's a problem when someone gets hurt. It's like, then you have to think, well, did God tell me to do that? Okay, what does the Bible tell you? What does the Bible teach? And I read the scripture about the sword. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. And Moses, I want to move to the next subheading, but I do want to mention that at that time, there were not a lot of scriptures at that time. You gotta remember, the Bible was not, they didn't have the Bible. Even when Jesus was here, Jesus did have an opportunity to go to the temple and read scrolls, but he didn't have a complete Bible like this. He didn't have all of this because there's a lot of stuff in Mark, Luke, John. Those books were written after his death. So he didn't have all of this in the Bible. So these people that came here before us, they had to have some kind of faith. It had to be so strong because they didn't even have all of this to really have a full understanding, like the way I understand the way God thinks. They didn't have it from all this. I believe their faith had a lot to do with it. And then God instructed them. They didn't have this. Anyways, so the next subheading is lawyers defend clients in court with words. To save, wait, what's that? Hold on. Okay. Oh yeah. Now, I was talking about the difference between Jesus and Moses because sometimes I get confused. Their stories are so much alike. These two people are so much alike. It confuses me sometimes. And so I was meditating on this the other day, trying to figure out the differences, how I can tell them apart, because there's so many similarities in these two individuals. So much things that happened in their life that was so similar. I wanted to tell the difference of them apart. And then I came up with this. Jesus, there's a reason why I'm saying this, of course. Okay, the difference between Moses and Jesus. When Moses went up to Pharaoh, his faith in God was strong. And I mentioned that. We continue to get strong. When Moses finally died, it was due to old age. And he already completed the assignment that God needed him to do at that time. Jesus' faith in God was strong too, but he died Okay, yeah, I'm talking about their deaths. Um, my nose. Jesus died because this is why he died. We all know he died to be a sacrifice for all, to save all humanity. We know that part. But I'm telling you what got him killed. He did not, this is one of the things, there was many other things. He did not completely defend himself with words to save himself the way Moses did. That's the difference between the two. I had to figure it out, and God told me. I was like, God, tell me a difference because I'm confusing myself. I'm confusing myself. That's the difference. Moses defended himself to the end. It's like he was willing to fight for a cause that he truly believed in. Jesus allowed so much stuff to happen to him, and he died for it. There's many. Okay, I want to stick to this because when I'm not reading off my outline, I tend to go off subject. So let me what I say. Okay, that's the difference. We're gonna go back to the difference, but I want to continue to keep reading. You know, Jesus did not save himself with words. Like, when a person is in court and the lawyer, they defend their client with words to save their client and whatever the situation it is that they're in. It's it's the way they're speaking, whatever words they gathered up. Jesus allowed himself to be killed because he knew it was meant for him to be killed. So he purposely chose not to speak because he knew it was going to get him killed if he didn't defend himself by speaking. I'm not saying using weapons, no, speaking. Yeah, when Jesus was in court facing serious charges and accusations, there were many moments when he chose not to speak and he remained silent while being questioned. He could have responded in a way to save himself, but he didn't. And there were people that wanted to help him. The people that were, I don't believe King Herod wanted to help him, but Pontius Pilate did. And he was getting kind of frustrated with Jesus, like, why aren't you saying anything? He wanted him to defend himself. And Jesus was making it difficult because he wasn't saying nothing. And he wasn't trying to prove his case. If he would have proved his case, that probably would have gave Pontius Pilate some confidence. But he chose to stay silent. And that's the difference between Jesus and Moses. Is Moses did not stay silent. His command from God was to speak to Pharaoh and demand what he demanded. So that involved a lot of speaking, defending. Jesus' assignment was to be killed. He was supposed to be a ransom for all humankind to replace Adam, the first man that sinned, that first perfect person. Jesus had to replace that perfect person for us with another perfect person. So he already knew he was supposed to die. That was his. So he knew he had to die for a cause. He was not supposed to defend himself, because defending yourself, that means you're going to save yourself. You're not supposed to if you know you're supposed to die. I think I made my point. Um, now I understand the difference between Jesus because I was like, God, they seem so much alike when you actually read scriptures and the stuff that they experience. It's so much alike, but it's a difference. All right, I want to read some scriptures real quick. I want to read Mark 14:61. I try not to overwhelm y'all too much with these scriptures, but I wanted to put enough in here. Mark. Now, what I say? 14. I'm so slow. Okay. But he held his peace and answered nothing. Again the high priest asked him and said unto him, Art thou the Christ, the Son of the Blessed? That was when that was a time Jesus was being questioned. See, he held his peace. But then, this verse 62. Then when Jesus did respond, he said, I am, and ye shall see the Son of Man sitting on the right hand of power and coming in the clouds of heaven. See, it's like that's how he got himself killed, because he would be silent at times. And then when he would respond, it would be something, he would say it in a way to make anybody mad. Because he wouldn't give them he didn't say yes or no. He could have, all the dude asked was, are you Christ? He just wanted a yes or no. And Jesus talking about seeing the Son of Man on the right hand of power coming in the clouds of heaven. To other people that sounds really arrogant, like he got an attitude. You shall see the Son of Man in the clouds, the right hand of God. And it's like, I just asked if you was Christ. But that's how he was responding a lot. He was responding in a way to make people mad. Because he wasn't giving them the answer that they wanted. Okay, so I want to read Luke 23:9. These are scriptures regarding to some of the information that I went over. 23:9. Oh my goodness. Then he questioned with him in many words, but he answered him nothing. This is another time. This is when Jesus was sent to King Herod. And he did not respond at that time. See, being questioned. I know if somebody accusing me of something, I would be like, I didn't do it. I'm not guilty of these crimes. No, that wasn't me. And I'm gonna be truthful about it too. If I did it, I'll be like, all right, I did it. I ain't gonna do it again, though. But I'm gonna defend myself. I'm like, no, that wasn't me. That ain't me. But Jesus did not do that. Which I'm not gonna lie. The more that I read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, sometimes I get angry. Not angry like I want to hurt someone, but I get annoyed. I get really annoyed with Jesus and the way he responded. Because sometimes it's like I'm watching a movie. I'm watching a movie and I see this person that can save themselves and they're not. It annoys me because I want to see them saved. I don't want them to die. So when I read it, it's like, come on, Jesus, say something. That's how I be feeling like, God, say something to save you. And when he don't, it annoys me because I don't want him to die. That's why it annoys me. But I also have the understanding that he purposely did it because he knew he meant to die. But still, it's annoying sometimes when I read it because it's like, oh my God, if you would just say it. Like it says, like watching a movie and you see something happen and it's like, oh my God, what? Oh no. Okay, so I want to read two more scriptures right now. Actually, maybe three. Matthew 26:62 to 63. Matthew. Let's see, 26, 62. And the high priest arose and said unto him, Answer thou nothing? What is it which these witnesses against thee? But Jesus held his peace. And the high priest answered and said unto him, I adjure thee by the living God that thou tell us whether thou be Christ the Son of God. And here I'm going to read 64. This is when Jesus responds and says, Thou hast said, nevertheless I say unto you, hereafter shall ye see the Son of Man sitting on the right hand of power and coming in the clouds of heaven. Yeah, it sounds very arrogant when you really when you really think about it, you try to picture yourself in that scene or how it happened in that situation. Can you imagine someone responding when all they're asking is if he's the Son of Man, if he's the Christ? Yeah, I can see how another person would be annoyed with that. Let's see. Okay, I want to read Mark 15, 3 through 5. At least so y'all know where I get my information from. This is where I get my information from. 3 through 5. But Jesus yet answered nothing, so that Pilate marveled. Wait, I said 3. Oops, my bad. 3 through 5. And the chief priests accused him of many things, but he answered nothing. And Pilate asked him again, saying, Answer thou nothing? Behold, how many things they witnesses against thee? But Jesus answered nothing, so that Pilate marveled. You know, when it says that he marveled, he was like, wow, like he was shocked that, Jesus being accused of all these crimes of, false allegations. Let's see, false allegations. He was in awe and kind of like really shocked that this person was not defending themselves. It's rare when you see that, you know. Yeah, he marveled at it. Like, what? It's probably something like that. Like, what? You ain't gonna say nothing? You crazy? Prophecy. There's a prophecy of Jesus' silence that led him to be slaughtered. It mentions that. I want to read because I do like this scripture. I love prophecies, and when you see it actually happens, it's like, oh snap! Wow. God did say that was going to happen. 53. Isaiah 53, 7. Let's see. Isaiah. In there somewhere. Oh, okay. 53. Okay. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before her shearers is dumb, so he opened not his mouth. That was a prophecy of what Jesus did. He was, see, what is it? He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter. You know what the scripture is telling me? What this scripture what I feel like this scripture is telling me is that's why the lamb was brought to the slaughter, because he didn't say anything that could have saved him. That's why people need a lawyer to speak for them in court so they can get out of trouble. And that's one of the reasons why I really like this scripture, because it tells you right there that he was brought to the slaughter because he did not open his mouth. And of course, there were times when he responded, but when he chose to respond, it was like this arrogant response, like, you're going to see me sit on the right hand of God coming in the clouds. Yeah. That's how it came off, how it probably sounded to you somebody talking to the emperor or the governor, and you say that, it didn't sound humble at all. The more I continue to read Jesus' response, I'm like, wait a minute, this is not a humble response. It sounds arrogant. Even though he was a humble person, he was purposely being, like, I hate to say it, an asshole. When he chose to respond, he was purposely being an asshole so he can be slaughtered. So he knew either I don't say anything or I respond with a arrogant response. Whatever he did, it was just making them madder. So anyways, I want to move on. We already talked about the difference between Moses and Jesus, as one defended themselves to the end and the other really didn't, which led to his death. That's how it happened. So, dang, I got now I do have these scriptures with Moses. I'm not going to read them right now because it's probably going to take too much time, but I'll tell you what scripture it is, but I might not actually read the actual scripture. You can look it up if you want. In Exodus chapter 2, verse 11 and 12, that's when Moses defended the Israelites. I might read some of them. We'll see. I might change my mind. Exodus 2:16 to 22. That's when Moses defended Jethro's daughter at a well. Exodus chapter 8, verse 1 through 25. That's when Moses defends the Hebrew Israelites by confronting Pharaoh. And Exodus 32:19. That's when Moses defending God when he was witnessing the Israelites worshiping a false idol when they was in the wilderness and they were worshiping the calf. Imagine all those people out there in the wilderness, and it's him and all those Israelites. It was a lot of them, but he still had that confidence to defend. Then it wasn't about defending the Israelites no more. It was about defending God. It's like God brought us all this way. He saved us. He brought us through the Red Sea. He even made it rain food when we were hungry. And y'all want to worship this false idol? Oh, he got real mad. And that was him. So these are the different situations when Moses defended somebody. And it was because he believed in that, whatever the reason was or whatever the issue was, he believed in it so much to do that. So those scriptures are important for when I was discussing the difference between Jesus and Moses, and that one difference of one defended themselves and one didn't. That's why when Moses died, it wasn't by the hands of another human being. It was due to old age and the fact that he already fulfilled God's purpose. But what was I gonna say? Oh yeah. I'm thinking. I was just thinking about something. Anyways, if y'all get time, maybe read those scriptures because that's where I got my information to compare the scriptures with Jesus. Those other scriptures I read for you, so y'all can know the difference between Moses and Jesus. Oh, I do want to mention this part. So the source. This is I'm almost done with section 1. I'm going to go into section 2, but this is section 1. And I want to let you know the source that I used is obviously the Bible. That's the source where I got my information from, is the Bible. There was another source. I did use the AI review just by Googling it. There's several different websites. When I say the AI review, I'm talking about the overall deaths that I mentioned with gun violence, suicides, and then the homicides. If you Google it, AI review might show you. But then if you just continue to scroll down, you may be able to see several websites that have that same information too, because I did read it on some websites. But the source right here that I wrote down is the AI review for that part. But most of this information that I read to you today, the source was from the Bible. Definitely from the Bible. What I want to mention before I move on is something to make note of and to think about. Something I've thought about is and this is going back to guns. Because you might be thinking, what does this have to do with guns? It has everything to do with guns. If someone's defending themselves, like I said, Moses defended himself to the end and did not use not one weapon. Jesus, we already know. Oh, Lord. But it has everything to do with guns. So as we can see, Moses' ways of defending either himself or others changed while witnessing injustice. And what I mean is he continued to get upset in these moments, but throughout his years, he reacted differently, causing him to use less violence but more reasoning with God's word. So, and that's something I saw too that was interesting to me, because I noticed and it's the scripture in Exodus 2:11 and 12. When Moses defended that Israelite, that was where he killed an Egyptian because he saw the suffering of an Israelite by the hands of an Egyptian. So that was his, at that time, you got to understand, that was when he was first getting to know who God was. He, drawing close to God. His spirit, his faith wasn't that strong at that time, but he knew he had to do something. His mind was slowly changing. So the way he defended it was not the way we should defend people, but that was how he did it at the time. And I really believe his faith wasn't that strong to understand, him being upset. It was really, he had a temper. So it had a lot to do with him being upset and not reacting in a productive way with his anger. There's a way we can react productively with our anger, and he had to learn that. And so when you read the next scripture in Exodus 2:16 to 22, when he defended Jethro's daughter at a well, it states that he drove those other people away. If you read it more, you'll know. But he didn't kill nobody at that time. He didn't kill nobody at that well. And then the next time he defended the Hebrew Israelites by confronting Pharaoh, there were no killing and nothing. So as you can see, when you notice that the better his communication skills got, and the more his faith continued to grow and get stronger, he relied more on God's way of thinking versus his own. Because I know a lot of people might want to use that scripture and say, well, Moses, he killed an Egyptian, so that's what we're supposed to do. You know what I'm saying? When we defend ourselves, we got to do something like that. But no, his faith was not that strong at the time. And his ways of reacting with his anger changed. It changed. If he would have continued to do that every time that he's defending somebody, oh my God, he would have gotten in a lot of trouble. Because you got to remember, after he did that, he fled and he left. Like he ended up leaving. He ran away. He was afraid of what he did, because that's like those. It's like an officer. I mean, at that time, that's like killing an officer. That's what it's like. Like the Egyptian people, the slave taskmasters that were whipping the Israelites and beating them at that time, those were the people in power overseeing what was going on. And so, they had a different name for them, but it was, in a way, in our day today, it would be like someone in that position of power that's an officer, and you do that. He was afraid of what he did, even though he felt like he was right in what he did, defending that uh, person that was getting beat. He was afraid because he knew the power Pharaoh had, and he killed one of his people, so he ran away. And I'm just laughing about it because oh snap! I'm just laughing about it because why am I laughing about it? Anyways, yeah, he is afraid, but he see the fact that, think about it. If a person feel like they got to run away, they know that's not the way they should be reacting, because running away is a sign of guilt. It's a sign of, oh, I did something wrong. I got to get out of here because I can feel the heat. I gotta go. He was afraid. Anyways, but like I said, he was doing a little less running away after, when he was responding differently with his anger. The more time he kept defending the Israelites and doing what God wanted him to do, he didn't have to run away no more, because he was confident, and he was not leaning on his own understanding anymore. That was it. Now I want to go into section 2. I think I said enough. I actually repeated myself maybe a few times, because I just want a person to really remember and get it in their head what I'm saying. That's why I like to repeat myself. I'm not trying to be annoying, but I'm probably annoying anyways. Okay, so I want to get into section 2, which is um, it's about Malcolm X assassination, because the more that I read about it, I'm not gonna lie, I feel like I've kind of been obsessed about his assassination, obsessed about wanting to figure out how he could have prevented it from happening, trying to figure out all who have been involved and who really is the person to blame. I just, maybe the past few weeks, I feel like I've been so obsessed with this story, just looking up information, trying to have a better understanding of what really happened, and so I can speak my opinion about it. So, according to an AI overview, and let me tell you something, I believe they got that AI thing up there. They gather that information probably from a whole bunch of other sources. Because when I be like, I want to see how accurate this AI overview stuff is, and I start reading other websites, usually I see the same information in other sources. I see it in other websites. And then it kind of gives me a little bit more confidence. Like, okay, you know what? This AI stuff might be like really accurate. I didn't understand it at first, but when I start seeing that same information in other sources, then I'm like, okay, that's where they got that information from. Makes sense. So that's why I wanted to use it again. So according to AI Overview and various sites, it has been It has been documented that Malcolm X was shot at 21 times. Now, I'm not saying they actually shot him 20 times, because I believe the number may be different. Maybe it was 17 or something, but they shot at him 21 times. Some of the bullets could have went somewhere else, but they shot at him that many times. Somebody was making sure that he was going to die that day. They had to, hey, you ain't about to get up and survive 3 or 5 bullets. I'm gonna shoot at you 21 times to make sure you dead, because you gotta die today. That's what that tells me. When somebody shoot at somebody that many times, they're on a mission that they have to complete or something. Like, it has to be done, because if that person survived, then maybe something bad will happen to the shooter. They had to make sure he died, because that's crazy. Somebody shooting somebody that many times. Damn. And so he died on February 21st, 1965, which I thought was really odd, because I like numbers. Math used to be my favorite subject in school. I don't like the whole calculus, and when they try to make things all just give me a regular equation, or 5 plus 5. I just like regular math. But when they take it to the whole higher level of stuff that don't make no sense to me, then it's like, you lost me. I'm good. But I did, as a child, I used to like just regular math, because it's something with numbers that I really like. Sometimes numbers will tell you a whole story. You start putting numbers together, and it's like, oh snap, that's crazy. And I don't feel like it's a coincidence. I believe it's like a divine order in a way, when you see these numbers fit together somehow. It's weird, because I'm like, hold on, they shot at him 21 times. I had to look at different sources just to make sure that was accurate. And I continued to read the same thing, like 21 times, and then he died on the 21st. What is up with this number 21? Something about that number that this was like of course, obviously it was a premeditated thing, but somebody was trying to show somebody something, and it had something to do with the number 21. So I thought that was really odd, that I continue to see that number 21. And now the sources that I used to read that was the British Online Archives and Time magazine. So if you look it up in there, you'll see. He got shot at 21 times, and he died on the 21st, 1965. That's crazy. That's weird. So weird to me. Thomas Hagen, he went by other names. I believe it was a name that he went by when he was a part of the Nation of Islam. But for some reason, this Thomas Hagen name seemed, I believe that's his actual name, like his legal name. There was other names I saw for him, but he was an individual who shot in broad daylight, admitted that he killed Malcolm X. I mean, people knew. There was a lot of people that saw it there. So, I mean, he was the killer, right? So there's times where I would see videos on YouTube and people talk about, who killed Malcolm X? It's like, he did. What are you talking about? He did it. He admitted to doing it. He did it in broad daylight. But I understand people, when a loved one loses someone, they want to blame someone. They got to find someone to blame, because it hurts so much that person is no longer here. And so they have to find someone to blame. And then oftentimes, I'm not saying everybody, but oftentimes people do things for money. If you see somebody, I'm suing you for $31 million. Well, I'm suing the state for $100 million because they killed my daddy. It's like, well, this is how I feel. Why do you feel like you deserve $100 million because he's dead? What does money have anything to do with a person dying? I'm confused. It's not, now I can see if it brings back the person, if someone, you win $15 million, now Malcolm X is here, then that makes sense. But if it doesn't bring back the person, I just don't understand why a person wants to sue for that much money when it comes to murder. When it comes to other things, suing people for money, I do understand it. But when it comes to murder, it doesn't make any sense to me. Unless, let's say, there are exceptions. I do understand, like, let's say it's a family member, or, okay, this is one thing I do understand. Let's say it's a family member, they're struggling financially because they don't have their daddy in their life and he dead. And they feel like somebody has to pay. Somebody owes them some kind of money. Because look at my life. I got to struggle. I ain't got my daddy in my life. And I got to go without a daddy and I got to struggle. I deserve money. I understand that. But do you really deserve $100 million? That's a lot of money. He didn't even have that kind of money. So when it comes to someone dying, I do feel like some people, I'm not saying everybody, but some people just do stuff just for money. But then you have the people that are about justice, and it's like somebody has to pay. Now, if you're like, hey, this person needs to be locked up because they killed my daddy, I totally get that. I understand that. You want to see someone pay, you know, for the you want to see someone suffer, basically. You want to see someone suffer because you're suffering because your daddy is not here. I understand that, but I think we need to be careful when we do that, because I think sometimes people get lost in it. They get so lost in it, and then it does sometimes become about money. We already know who the killer was, okay? So we know that part. But then I know people feel like there was more people involved, which there probably were, right? More people involved. So it's like, okay, it wasn't just him. It was some other people conspired to do this whole damn thing. And sometimes, and I understand that too, because think about the devil. He doesn't, I mean, he's in the background. And when I say he's in the background, he don't he don't want to really, when I say make himself seen, this is what I mean. When it comes to sin, injustice, bad stuff happening, murder, whatever you can think of that's bad. The devil don't want to admit to none of that, right? So he's the puppet master. Thomas Hagen was just a puppet. But when I say the devil, I'm saying sometimes there are people in the background that can conspire something that it may seem more wicked than just using a puppet and using somebody that's willing to carry out their evil deed. It's like, you know what, I'm going to just use this person and have him do it instead. So we don't have to get our hands messy. That's what often happens too. However, and so a person can be like, you know how people like to blame the devil, right? They can be like, oh, no, no, it's the people in the background. They the ones that conspired it, right? But it's a test. Think about it. It's just a test. Like, it's like the devil wants to test us. We can blame the devil and say, the devil made me do it. But it's like, no, the devil was testing you and you fell for it. And I'm not saying everybody in the background is the devil. No, there's oftentimes good people in the background. But then there are some people that want to see if you're dumb enough to do it. And they'll just use that person to do it. And I really, really believe that's what happened in this situation. So, I mean, at the end of the day, he was the one that did it. He was the one that fell for it. Whatever people conspired to have him do it, because, it's a known fact that he was from what I read, he was an informant and he had an association with law enforcement. So he was kind of like a undercover cop. So when people understand that and they find that part out, then they want to know all the other undercover cops. They want to talk about all those other people. But he was the one that did it. Anybody can tell you to do something and say whatever, but it's our choice of whether we're going to do it or not. That's how I really feel. It's like, he made that choice. That's how I really feel about it. He made that choice. So even if people were involved, it's like, okay, well, it's like peer pressure or whatever. You got people, if you're in high school right now and someone's telling you to do something, oh yeah, you should go punch that girl in the eye. Because remember that other stuff she did? Yeah, girl, go beat her up. She ain't gonna mess with you no more. Go do it. Yeah. That happens often in high school. You got those friends in your ear saying, and then it's that person's choice to go beat her up or don't go beat her up. And now, if she beat her up and the principal brings her in the principal's office, say, why did you beat her up? Oh, well, my friends, they had a lot to do with why I did what I did. They told me to do it. The principal is probably not going to care too much about what she's saying because she's the one that actually did it. So sometimes things just be a test. But anyways, I still want to talk about the other people that did conspire to get him killed because that's still very important. And it's more so talking about the Nation of Islam. I really want to talk about this. I understand why an informant was involved. The more I read, it made a lot of sense of why that informant was involved. It made a lot of sense. However, the Nation of Islam had a lot to do with the events that led up to the assassination. So I wanna briefly read this timeline that I wrote down. It's not as detailed as some timelines that I've seen online. Wow, some of those websites. I went to the website alkalimet.org and I was able to see this timeline of the events, all the stuff that I don't want to say all the stuff, but a lot of stuff that happened in Malcolm X's life. And it was so much stuff. It was a lot. But I wanted to make my own and make it as brief as I could, trying to touch on the focus on the assassination part. So on March 3rd, and this is according to the websites. Let me just mention the sources that I use, just so you know where I got this information from. The nytimes.org, African American Registry, alkalimat.org, AI Overview, thestreetspirit.org. Those are some of the websites that's the sources that I use for this information. March 3rd, Malcolm X, he departed from the Nation of Islam. Malcolm X's association with the Nation of Islam is one of the key factors that led to his death. And you got to remember, this is my opinion, my perspective on this whole thing. March 8th, 1964, Malcolm X publicly announced his separation from the Nation of Islam. So on the 3rd is when he actually separated from them. But the 8th is when he announced it. According to an article, it was reported by an informant that Elijah Muhammad had ordered Malcolm X to surrender his home and car, both owned by the Nation of Islam. And from what I read, that was on March 9th. So that was a day so basically after the 8th, a day after he publicly announced his separation from Nation of Islam, the Elijah, according to that informant, Elijah had ordered him to basically return his home and car because they owned it. So it's like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of messed up, but then it kind of makes a person think carefully about owning their own stuff, and because if you do separate from them and you're no longer communicating with them, y'all no longer friends, now you got to return your stuff. If they're gonna be like that, most likely they're gonna be like that. Hey, give me my stuff back. You ain't gonna be my friend. Give me my stuff back. That's what happened. They got mad and they like give us the car. These, I mean, I really believe if it's a Christian, like a real godly, fearing Christian person, they wouldn't even have done that. It'll be like, oh, don't worry about it. You know, what we gave you was a gift. But they were angry because Malcolm X was exposing Elijah and all this stuff he was doing, and that made him very upset because it was making him look bad. He didn't just say, I'm just separating from them. No, he went into detail about why and what they were doing. Yeah, that made him mad. Like, give me my stuff back, nigga. Made him mad. So, yeah, he exposed Elijah. And then, after him exposing Elijah, he received many threats following this. New York Herald, according to the New York Herald Tribune, reports Malcolm X under police protection due to threats. And I actually like reading this because, there's been a lot of talk about police being the cause of his death, but if you continue to read, you'll see that there's been many situations where the police actually was trying to protect him. So not all police are the same. Because he was in situations where when he started receiving those threats, there's something I read about police guarding his home on July 3rd. And yeah, they probably were guarding his home because that was after the fact that he was already receiving threats. So it's like it's like, why would they be guarding his home? It was somebody was trying to protect him some kind of way. July 6th, Malcolm X uses the name Malik Al-Shabazz, purchased a ticket to Cairo. So he used a different name, Malik. And it him using a different name, I mean, that could have been maybe trying to hide his, I mean, if he goes by Malcolm X, it could be for two reasons. Him separating from the Nation of Islam, he probably didn't want to be called Malcolm X because that X came from them. So I can understand him wanting to be like, I'm changing my name. I don't want to have nothing to do with y'all. Y'all messed up. But another reason is I believe it could have had something to do with his identity. If you receiving all those threats and you in fear of your life because you didn't expose somebody televised. I'm not saying just have a phone conversation. No, it's televised. And you broadcasting it for the whole world, you making them look bad. Oh yeah, somebody want to kill you. They want to kill you. So I can understand why he used the name Malik. That's probably another reason why he used that name. Just trying to maybe protecting his identity because he was fearful of his life. So I was just trying to make sense of it. So those are the two reasons why I believe he used that name. February 9th, Malcolm X denied entry to France by, oh yeah, I want to talk about this. denied entry to France by French authorities. According to historical reports, he was on his way to speak at an African American rally in Paris, but was then denied entry. Some reports suggest that the French authorities were aware of the CIA's plot to assassinate Malcolm X and were preventing him from being killed in France. I really like reading this too because, like, this will really open a person's mind to have a different perspective on this whole situation. It's like, okay, you could look at it one way and say, oh, that's messed up. Because that's how I was looking at it at first until I continued to read. I was like, oh, that's messed up. They didn't let him into France? Why? But understanding that they knew if he was going to speak at that African American, not African American, what am I talking about? He wanted to speak at, African American rally in Paris. They knew it was going to cause more possibly disrupt the public order in France, meaning maybe more demonstrations, maybe more people upset and angry and riots possibly happening. And they also knew, they were aware, well, it's stated of the CIA's plot to assassinate Malcolm X. They were aware of that. So, from what I got from it, them preventing him to enter because he know he might die, those are police. The police. French authorities, that's the police. The police prevented him from to enter into France because they knew if he go speak up there, somebody might shoot him. And so they didn't let him in. And I'm like, well, that's a good thing. They were protecting him. That's why they didn't let him in. They could have let him in. Like, if those police officers really wanted him to die, they could have let him in, him speak, and then get shot at. I mean, which what eventually ended up happening. They knew the plot. Somebody had made some kind of plot or, idea to kill him. They knew about it. So they didn't let him in. Wow. That's a good thing. So I just really like reading that. I really like reading that because I feel like a lot of people need to read that and they just hear that part. To me, that's good police officers protecting. I mean, they're supposed to be here to serve and protect. And I believe that's a good example of them protecting somebody that they know could possibly die today if they get up on that podium and start speaking all. They probably felt like he was going to go out there and continue to keep exposing Elijah, or who knows. They probably didn't even know what he was going to say, but they knew him saying something was going to put his life at risk because of him already exposing that person and their sins, making them look bad. He made himself a target. It wasn't him exposing the police. He was exposing the religion. It was religion that got him killed. And this made me think of Jesus. It had me thinking like, well, I already talked to you about this earlier about ultimately Jesus not defending himself is really what got him killed. But there's other factors that play into it. I believe I said I was going to mention that later. Those other factors. Jesus was exposing people left to right, calling people snakes. Actually, he was calling the Pharisee, the religious Pharisees. He was calling them snakes. I mean, he was exposed, knocking over tables in temples. I mean, and I know we just, as Christians, will justify it because it was Jesus, but can you imagine today, in our day, someone going into a church or a temple and knocking over their stuff up in there, tables and chairs, the people who are in there going to be like, hey, you need to get out of here. We're going to call the police on you. But get your crazy ass out of here. That's what it's going to be like a crazy person coming in and start knocking over stuff. So you got to really remember what Jesus was doing that got him killed. He was exposing a lot of people, knocking over stuff. And then when it came time to him being questioned, and he got all those accusations and stuff. And the sad part about it is the accusations that were made about him were false. But the fact that he was doing what he was doing, it made people confident to feel like they could lie on him because of his behavior, knocking over tables, exposing people, calling people snakes. I mean, there's a lot of good things that Jesus did do, which I love, and him teaching us how to live our lives. But I'm talking about the bad things that he did, or things that could be seen as bad, that made people think about it. When a person really comes up with this false allegation, they got to be confident some kind of way to even do that. It's like, especially when they're innocent, like Jesus was innocent. But that's how they came up with it, because the stuff that he was doing made them confident enough to make a false allegation. And then when it, like I said earlier, when it came time to defend himself, he didn't do it. So that was ultimately like, damn, it's done. You over. It's a wrap. But there were events that led up to Jesus being betrayed. There were events that happened. And a lot of those events were him, like I said, exposing people, knocking over tables, disrupting a lot of stuff. And it had to happen because, there's a meaning in it. He hated what he saw in the temple with people selling stuff, making money off of God's word, which is wrong. But still, it's wrong. But should we react that way? No, because it's going to give another person ammunition to feel like they can make an allegation off you, and it might not even be true. They might not even say, oh, he came up in his temple and he knocked a table over, yelling at everybody. No, they're going to come up with a false allegation. That means they got to come up with something so bad to get you arrested so you can die. It ain't, if they, come on, really? If they say, oh, Jesus, he went in that temple and he knocked that table over. Okay, a judge is going to be like, all right, well, what else did he do? It's like, okay, yeah, that's wrong. You shouldn't be doing that, Jesus. But what else? They knew that wasn't enough, so they had to make something up. They had to form a lie, something so bad. And some of the stuff they said was accurate, so they mixed lies and truth together. Like, when I say accurate, oh, he's the Messiah. He's the Son of God. But he knew, admitting that he was the Son of God, going up to a king is going to be upset with that, because the king only wants to be the king. He doesn't want nobody else to be a king, not in his country. No. So when you have somebody else and trying to say they the actual Christ, the Son of God, the new king, the one that these governments ain't going to save y'all, my God's kingdom will, and I'm going to be the king. Oh, no, a king is not going to like that. So some of the stuff was true, but a lot of it wasn't. But it was true, but they twisted it. And the reason why am I talking about Jesus right now? Well, it just made me think of that when I was talking about Malcolm X. I'm not saying that he was Jesus, but I'm saying this part made me think of, oh yeah, the part where he exposed Elijah Muhammad. All that exposing that he continued to do is what ultimately those events is what led to people wanting to kill him. Nobody wants to look bad. And when you start mentioning names, oh my God, you got to be careful doing that. So that's why I mentioned Jesus, because Jesus was doing a lot of that. He was exposing people. He was exposing the Pharisees and how hypocritical they were selling stuff in the church, in the temple. And that's what what's his name? Malcolm X. He was doing with Elijah in Nation of Islam. He was exposing them. So I want to talk about the FBI involvement. I wrote a blessing from God? Question mark. There are numerous reports about the FBI intentions, their intentions to separate Malcolm X from the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam have been exposed as hypocritical. Some of the things they claim to be against, they themselves were practicing behind closed doors. And when Malcolm X discovered several affairs Elijah Muhammad was having, and this is all public, this is on the internet, there's, people know this. When he discovered the affairs he was having, he was upset by his hypocritical behavior. So if it was the intentions for the FBI to separate Malcolm X, this is my opinion. If it was the intentions for the FBI to separate Malcolm X from the Nation of Islam, it probably was a good thing or a blessing. That's the way I see it, because it seemed like the more I read about Malcolm X, it seemed like I hate to say it, but it just kind of sounded like the people in the nation Islam were using him as a puppet. I hate to say as a puppet, because then we go back to that Thomas Hagen person that shot him, and he was used as a puppet because he he chose to do it. He was the one that did it. I don't care who said what to him in his ear. He made that choice to do it. He definitely should be responsible. He did it. However, then I think of Malcolm X and how he was like the spokesperson of the whole organization, not even being aware or knowing that the people that he was representing were not, they were fake. Like they weren't even living the life that they made him think. He got involved in that religion because it had a lot to do with believing in something, believing in people that were like him, African American. You know, he had experiences with the KKK and what you would call white people that were not good experiences. So when he was locked up and he learned all this information about these people that are going to stand and fight for African Americans, and it meant something to him at the time when he learned, because of the experiences that he had as a child and then growing up. And then he I'm sure he probably felt like he belonged to something. But being aware, you know, of what that person was doing, how he treated the women that he got pregnant, the Elijah person, that, yeah, that made Malcolm X want to confront him and be like, hey, I thought you said this is what we shouldn't be doing it, but you doing it? That didn't sit right with him. And I'm sure they were not happy about the fact that, you know, because some people, they can know a lot of dirt what people doing and they just go along with it because now, guess what? I'm famous now.
Have you seen all those televised events that I did? I'm the leader of the Nation of Islam. Okay, yeah, someone came to me and told me what you were doing. But I don't care. Oh well, I'm not gonna say nothing because I'm the leader. I'm famous. Like, I'm just not gonna. And a lot of people probably did that. They didn't want to. They didn't care. They didn't want to like. They didn't stand up the way that Malcolm X did because he found it very hypocritical. Like, hold on, who are you? You made me think that the way, like, even some of the interviews that I've not interviews, speeches, yeah, in some interviews that I've seen with Malcolm X, um, yeah, the way that he continued to keep talking, and I mentioned this before, he continued to keep talking about this Elijah person as if, not saying as if he's God, but if he's just this, it put him in such a great light, not even knowing what kind of person he really was. And and when I say it looked like, the more I continue to see stuff, it looked like he was being used, Malcolm X was being used as a puppet from the Nation of Islam, is because the stuff that he taught about all white people are devils and they're, you know, trying to gain this powerful, strong black mindset like, hey, we can overcome this, we got to fight, we got to separate ourselves. All these white people are bad, blah, 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 right? But that was a hateful message in a way because that's not the truth. Not all white people are bad. They're not all devils. There's evil in every race. Doesn't matter what race you are, it comes down to the person. But I believe at that time, Malcolm X being ignorant of that and him going along with whatever they taught at the Nation of Islam, him being ignorant of that, um, he was pretty much telling what they probably didn't want to put themselves out there to be like, hey, all y'all white people is evil. Because they probably knew it was going to put them in a bad light and put them in a position where now you got a lot of people hating you. But they were able to use Malcolm X to do it. That's why I said they used him as a puppet because he probably was like, oh, cool, I'm the leader. Oh, that's But the message that he was saying was very hateful about white people because it's so not true. But I really believe it's because he was ignorant of it. He probably believed that because of the bad experiences that he had with the KKK. And they knew the experiences that he had, so they probably felt like he'd be the perfect person to use to deliver their message. It wasn't his message. That's why he kept saying the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He feels, he thinks. He wasn't even, it wasn't his own mind. He was delivering a message, their message. And it's like, I would love to, maybe that'll be my homework, is to watch as much as videos or read articles about whatever interviews I see on Elijah Muhammad talking. But I do know that they had him as like one of the spokesmen. They probably had other people speaking. Not probably. I know they had other people speaking, but anyways, that was their message. It wasn't his, and he made it known. This is what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches. It was a hateful speech, but I believe that he felt he probably was coming from a good place of wanting to fix the problem. He just did. I don't think he really knew how to fix it at that time. I don't think he knew how. So he was just misled. I really believe he was misled. My opinion. So, anyways, back to what I was saying with the FBI. Yeah, I think that's a good thing. If they conspired to separate him from the nation, it's a good thing because he found out that they were not who they said they were, and he was spreading these. Some of the messages kind of did seem a little hateful towards white people. So him spreading that message is like him being separated. He probably would begin to use his own mind and not think so much about this is what Elijah thinks. He would be thinking, well, what do I think? What is my opinion? So being separated from religion actually can be a good thing because then you start using your own brain. You're not using someone else's message in their brain. So I don't see it, honestly, if the FBI was involved, or I don't see it being a bad thing because it seemed like the closer that he was to them, yes, they gave him a car and a house, and that's good. They gave him stuff, and they gave him a spotlight, platform, but he was losing his mind. In his mind, his thoughts were based off of another person's thoughts. It wasn't even of his own. It wasn't from God. It wasn't from his own. So sometimes being too involved in religion can be dangerous for that reason. Because you start thinking like the pastor, and it's like, hold up, is that how God thinks? And you got to really question stuff nowadays because it's like, hold on, I want to live my life as pleasing to God, not a pastor, because you are you. I am me, and God is God. And I think God wants me to use my own brain, but at the same time, make it make sense. Try not leaning on my own understanding, but use my brain to be like, hey, how does God feel about this? Not, hey, how does Elijah feel about this? That's using your own brain. That's what I mean. So, anyways, I want to move on because I don't want to take too much time on this part, but I want to finish up this timeline. So, September 1st, 1964, there was from what I read, a civil court judge, Maurice Wall, that issued an order that Malcolm X must vacate his residence in East Elmhurst by January 31st, 1965. So they gave him time, and he knew, him having to leave is because, he separated from them, the religion. So they, like I said, they wanted their stuff back. But it looks like the judge gave him more than enough time. That's a wow. Like the hearing was on the 1st of September, 1964. They gave him to the 31st of January. That's like September, December. That's about 3 months that they gave him to leave. February 14th. So February 14th, 1965, that same house got firebombed early in the morning, 2:46 a.m. February 20th, Malcolm's, and I do want to touch on some of this a little bit more, but Malcolm's telephone conversation. Now, this was reported by someone that he knew. There was a telephone conversation about him doubting that the Muslims were the only ones involved in what was going on in his life. It mentioned that the conversation with Alex Haley, and this is a statement, the more I keep thinking about this thing, the things that have been happening lately, I'm not at all sure it's the Muslims. I know what they can do and what they can't. and they can't do some of the stuff recently going on. The more I keep thinking about this thing, about what happened to me in France, I think I'm going to quit saying it's the Muslims. February 20th, same day, Malcolm's friend Earl Grant offers him to stay the night at his apartment, and Malcolm X refuses. Because I guess Malcolm felt like, hey, you got a family of your own, man. Maybe he didn't want to be a burden. Who knows? February 21st, approximately 3:10 p.m., Malcolm X is shot multiple times. That's the 21st. I do want to mention this since the subject of the day is guns. So keep in mind that Malcolm X did own some guns and it's possible he could have used them at some point, but he owned them. From what I've read, it was what was reported because of all the numerous threats that he was receiving from the Nation of Islam. He felt the need to protect himself. Yeah, I do believe it was possible he could have used those. I was trying to read and find some situations of him, reports of him shooting somebody. I couldn't find anything, but I'm like, and I'll tell you why. I'll go into this a little bit more, why I feel that way. Like, even if he shot at someone and didn't shoot that person, I felt like something had to have happened that wasn't reported. I really believe that something happened and it wasn't reported or documented. Um, so based off the statement from the February 20th about Malcolm starting to wonder, like, oh snap, you know, really what he was saying is, when that thing happened with France, him going to France and the police not denying him entry, that's where he came up with that conclusion. Like, you know what? I believe it's not just the Muslims doing what all the weird stuff that's been going on. It's, ever since that thing happened to me in France, I'm going to quit saying it's the Muslims. But I don't really think. I really think he was looking at the events that happened from a different perspective. Like I said earlier, someone deny you entry, your first thought is, "Oh, that's messed up. You ain't gonna let me in." Versus, them when they understand why, they have a really full understanding why they're being denied entry. They might be able to see it from a different perspective. Like, wait a minute, somebody's trying to protect me from something. And I don't think he saw it like that at the time because people were threatening him, attacking him. He probably just saw it as another threat or someone just being unfair. That's probably how he saw it. Like, oh, that's messed up. Y'all ain't gonna let me in? Oh, man, y'all too. What? They used to be nice to me out here. I thought y'all was nice to me out here in France. Oh, that's messed up. But me learning that, the police, the French authorities were aware of someone trying to kill him and they did not want it to happen. That's protection. But I don't think he was looking at it like that at the time. So in his head, he was slowly thinking that, oh, they're in it too. But it's like, no, they trying to protect you. Uh, Reading or learning about Malcolm's friend Earl, his friend Earl that offered him to stay the night at his apartment the day before he died. To me, that's another act of God. That's the way I see it. It's like he probably didn't want to feel like a burden, like, oh no, you got your family, nah. But Earl probably knew what was going to happen, and hey man, stay the night. But eventually, this was probably just going to happen regardless. The way things are looking in the timeline, Earl probably could have helped for that time, but it seemed like it was just destined to happen. It was just going to happen because of all the exposing that Malcolm did. And not the exposing alone. Because I had to really understand the whole assassination. It's like, I'm like, wait a minute. This does none. Some of this don't make no sense to me. You mean to tell me if you tell on somebody and say this person is a sinner, you die from that? No, it had to have been more things that happened to cause him to die, not just him exposing someone as a sinner. That's really what he was doing, saying, "Man, you a sinner, and you try to make it seem like you some kind of prophet, and I'm over here delivering your message. You got me out here looking stupid." But it wasn't just that. I think about that civil court hearing. You know, Malcolm X was a very strong individual. I don't believe he was as spiritually strong as he could have been, because I think the moment he separated from the Nation of Islam, I really believe he was getting closer to get to that path, closer to God. But it didn't happen at the time because his life was cut short. It wasn't supposed to happen at that time. That's the way I see it. It wasn't meant to happen at that time. Um, but he was a very strong person, meaning if someone tells him to do something, he's going to be like, "Oh, no, you don't tell me what to do. I got a right." When people be really abusing their rights because of all the suffering they went through in their life and the discrimination or whatever, sometimes people take it too far and they don't know when to chill out and be like, "Okay, I know I got a right, but you gotta have a balance, gotta have balance too." But I believe he was that strong with his demeanor and his attitude to where he was just like that all the time. And so even being ordered by a court to, okay, you got to vacate by the 31st, and he was still living in that house after the 31st. That let me know the way he thought as a person. It's like if a judge tell you to do that and you still in that house after the 31st. Yeah, you thinking, and I know probably how he felt. Hold on, they gonna give me this house, the Nation of Islam. Y'all gonna give me this house and try to tell me to leave? I ain't going nowhere. The hell, y'all gonna have to come up in here. I'm buying me a gun. Y'all making these threats. Give me a gun. Y'all gonna have to come up in here and remove me yourself. I don't care what a judge says. I'm not going nowhere. I'm sure that's probably what he was saying, because learning that think about it, if the house was firebombed on February 14th, the following year, that means he chose to stay in that house several months after he was ordered by a judge to leave, because the judge saw that he did not own the property. It was a religion, some other people that owned it, and that's why he had to leave. But he was saying, "No, I ain't going nowhere." And so, and this is not saying it's okay to firebomb somebody's house. I'm not justifying it. However, I knew when I heard about his house being firebombed, I'm like, there had to be a reason why that happened. Who just does that? Who feels like they have a right to firebomb somebody? Something has to happen for that. And then I understood, oh, he didn't even own the house. And then when I dug a little deeper about the judge ordering him to leave, I was like, okay, there you go. So because if you don't leave and you don't even own the property, and somebody's saying they want their stuff back, but you like, no, I ain't giving it back. It's mine now. You're going to have to come up in here and get me first. Don't be no Indian giver. It's mine. And then you don't even care about what the judge say because you're just that strong in what you believe. Like, no, I have a right. I have a family. I have a right to stay in here. This is not right. This ain't fair. Well, whoever decided to firebomb his house was confident to do that because they knew if If he decided to, the fact that he decided to ignore a judge's orders, they could justify firebombing his house because he failed to comply with the judge's orders. Uh, you know, him. Who can he go to now and say that? Look, the judge's gonna be like, "I told your ass to get out of there months ago, man. I gave you enough time." So, and that's why when I'm talking about this assassination, that's why I feel like something else had to happen for someone to feel like they have a right to shoot somebody 21 times. Something else had to have happened because people are only allowed to do what they can do. God is the controller of the, I don't want to say controller because God is not a controlling God, but he's the creator of the universe. He's the author of everything. He's the one that says who has a right to live and die. And when a person does die, then I think of the reason and the cause and what caused them to die. But being shot that many times in broad daylight, to me, what that made me think of is somebody like firebombing the house. Somebody felt like they had a right to do it and they knew they could justify doing it because of whatever had happened. Malcolm X, something he was told to do, he didn't do, something he possibly could have done that maybe wasn't reported. Something had to have happened for them to be confident to justify doing that in the broad daylight. And the more I learned, then I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now this story makes so much sense to me. And what I believe is the closer a person gets to God, they develop humility. They develop the fruitage of the spirit. They develop that. Sometimes it takes time for people to develop those traits of what fruitage of it. We know what the the spirit of the world is. The spirit of the world is contrary to the fruitage. The spirit of the fruitage, I'm probably saying it backwards. When Jesus was talking about his disciples and he was telling them how you would know my real disciples, like real followers, is you'll know them by their fruits. You'll know them by how they live their life, who they are as a person. You'll know them by that. And I believe with Malcolm X, he was so consumed in the way another person thought and their message that I don't think he had the opportunity or the mental capacity to develop the fruitage of the spirit at that time because he was thinking like another person. And my point is developing that humility to be like, okay, damn, the judge ordered me to do this. I don't believe it's fair. Because it's kind of not really fair. Someone give you something and they take it back. It's messed up. And that's probably how he felt. Like, nah, I'm keeping this. But he didn't have that humility at that time to be like, all right, this is not fair, but this is what the judge ordered, y'all. So we gotta figure this out. We gotta leave. Yes, judge. Okay, I comply. That's humility. He didn't. Who knows what he said in court? But I'm saying after court, you know how he had thought, just knowing that he still lived in that house. Oh no, he was like, I'm not going nowhere. So there was no humility in that. And I believe this is how he reacted with a lot of things with the Nation of Islam when he decided to confront the people and separate himself and think, use his own brain. They wanted their stuff back. They're making threats. And I believe it was his way of reacting to things that made things worse. Like not giving, if You know, because I'm thinking, how could he have prevented all this stuff? Not giving them their car back, just saying, all right, what? Because I ain't gonna lie, I kind of used to be like that because I had to put myself in his shoes and try to understand, like, okay, if you was in that situation, there has been situations where I used to think like that, like, no, you know, if someone give me something, I ain't give it back to you, that's mine. Or don't tell me what to do. Shit. You know, but now the way I feel about it is different. Because yeah, I've been in those positions where I used to think like that. So I can understand. But see, it's me developing a closer relationship with God. I've changed my way of thinking has changed dramatically to where now if someone gives me something, and it depends. Sometimes it depends on the situation of what it is. I don't want to say everything is the same. Not everything is the same. But if they give me a gift and they want it back, I'll probably be embarrassed to be like, no, it's mine. Because I know what can happen after that. Because I've been in situations where I reacted like that and then we kind of got in like a little brawl, like almost fist fighting, to where it kind of leaves you thinking like, okay, well maybe, you know, I should just give it back. And then now the way I feel about it, like let's say someone gave me, I don't want to say that. Um, see, let's say somebody gave me a cake. A cake. Yeah, a cake. And I decide not to be their friend no more. I know cake is really dumb, but hey. And I'm like, you know what? I don't like what I saw you did that thing. I don't like what you did. You know, it don't sit well to me. I don't think I really want to be your friend no more. They say, oh, okay, give me my cake back. Me today, I know I would be like, oh, here, take your cake. Because I would feel embarrassed that to even keep something that, you know, I'm trying to explain it in a way that makes sense, but I would just kind of be embarrassed to keep something that somebody doesn't want me to have that they gave me. I'm trying to think of something else, like maybe if they give me some shoes and I break a bond. Usually when a person wants something back, it's usually when they don't trust you no more. They either don't trust you no more or you've already made it known some kind of way that you don't trust them and or you don't want to have nothing to do with them, then that's usually when they want their stuff back. Even from my experiences. But it just kind of, you know, it'll make me like feel really embarrassed to even, yeah, like let's say I really need some help. I need some money. Somebody give me like $20. Maybe I need food or something. And they say, "Give me my money back." I would feel really embarrassed to keep it. Like when I say embarrassed, just like, well, here, take it then. I don't even want it. Yeah, you know, kind of that thing. It's like I think it's a pride thing. Like, here, I don't even want your money. I'm good. You know, because then you don't want that person to feel like they have control over your life or you owe them some kind of way because you're not giving them their stuff back. That's what happened in this situation. They probably feel like they had some kind of control over his life because the stuff that they gave him, he didn't want to give it back. He didn't, let me just say, he didn't want to return it to them. And they did have control over his life because um, him knowing how he is, him not wanting to return it, they must have had some kind of control to do what they did. And it really had a lot to do, like I said, with him reacting the way that he reacted. If you just returned it, none of that stuff would have happened. No, you know, because I was alarmed the first time I learned about his house being firebombed. I was like, whoa, how did this happen? If he would have owned it, it would have been probably a whole different situation. But the fact that they owned it, I'm like, oh, makes a lot of sense. I got it. I already know now. Anyways, that's my thoughts. That's my thoughts about the assassination. Um, this I I believe that we have to be really careful about the way we react when we are going through things with someone else or a breakup. Separation is like a breakup. You know, we have to be very careful because it wasn't just him exposing them up. Exposing, yeah, that's really bad. But yeah, that's really bad. But it was other things. It was the way he reacted. And I believe it was at some point where he was receiving all those death threats. He probably did not take that stuff lightly, knowing him and his demeanor and how strong of a person he was. Even purchasing a gun, you know, if somebody's threatening to firebomb his, and he's getting warnings from people are warning him, oh, hey, somebody is planning on firebombing your car because it wasn't even, it was owned by someone else. You know, so if you don't return something to somebody and they own it, oh yeah, they're gonna feel like they have a right to bomb it because it's like they could say, well, it's my car anyways. And they might not admit to doing it, but that is the way a person can justify it because you didn't return it back to them. So that's how that made sense to me. Now, going back to him getting shot, I believe if he didn't own a gun, it would definitely wouldn't make no sense to me at all. It probably would. I don't believe it would have happened. I don't. I don't believe he would have got shot like that if he didn't own a gun. There are certain situations where people can get shot. They might not own a gun, but maybe they shot somebody else and now someone's shooting them. So I'm not saying you have to own a gun to get shot, but what I'm saying is hold a gun, use a gun, okay? Have you ever shot at the sky so many times because you mad? You ever see that Michael Jackson? It made me think of Malcolm X. Michael Jackson, Smooth Criminal. When in the video, Michael gets the gun. It looks when you look up, it looks like some soldiers. You know, they coming together with their guns, and Michael, he takes this gun and just starts shooting. He didn't look like his purpose was to kill anybody or to shoot anybody, but it was like him trying to show his anger and frustration in the video by just shooting all over the place so many times with that. It looked like an automatic gun. It made me think of Malcolm X right away, and I've watched that Smooth Criminal so many times, and never once have I thought of Malcolm X until recently when I saw it again, and I was like, oh snap. Is it possible he could have been so in fear of his life? I'm just throwing this out there. Is it possible he could have used that gun and shot at someone in the area or someone that was making threats? Oh my God. Maybe they didn't kill nobody. Maybe he did shoot someone. Maybe he didn't. Oh, he might not have. But is it possible he could have actually used the gun and shot in different places so many times? Maybe 21 times? And then when it came time to someone killing him 21 or shooting at him 20, that's the only thing that makes sense to me. for someone to have that right to feel like they have the right to shoot at him 21 times. Because the first thought that came in my mind is, did he ever use that gun and shoot up in the air 21 times because he was so scared and fearful of his life, and he just, it's possible. And it's possible it wasn't documented or reported. But I believe it's possible because it's that 21 number is so, keep seeing it. And the way I know that, things work, and I want to get into this too. I wasn't planning on this episode to be so long, but I don't think I'm ever planning on it being so long. It's just a lot of information that I wanted to put in here, and I wanted to cover as much as I could remember, because this is very important. I'm not just talking about relationships and you break up. What do you do when you break up with someone? What's the best way to react? That probably might be a 40-minute episode. But I knew this was going to take more time to get deep into this. Before I move on to the next subheading, I do really want to mention this again, that I believe that I hate to say it because it sounds so bad. I'm not trying to blame Malcolm X for his own death, and someone said this recently, and sometimes it's annoying, but at the same time there's some truth to it. Talking about Michael's death, anyways, about every person, a person is responsible for his own death. And there's some truth into that, because it's like how we react matters, is important. How we react to situations. How are you going to react to someone threatening you? Say, I'm going to kill you. They call your house and say, we going to kill you. Whatever. They walk past you. There was even a report about people, I believe it was 4 people approaching him with knives by his car. So he was not just getting phone calls, threats by the phone call. People were coming by his house, by his by his car with weapons, with knives, trying to put fear in him. And he wasn't that spiritually inclined to understand that that's all they were doing. They were trying to put fear into him to make him react the way that he did. If he would have known, oh, wait a minute, y'all trying to put fear, y'all think I'm stupid. You're trying to put fear in me? Oh, hell, I know what's going on here. You ain't about to trick me. No, you ain't gonna trick me. I ain't stupid. No, I don't think I really believe he was ignorant to that. And so those people approaching him with knives by his car, I'm just trying to play out the whole scene and what that probably was happening more often. I don't think it was just one situation like that. It was probably happening an everyday thing. And if he owns a gun and someone got a knife, I think it's a realistic thing of a person with a gun and someone coming in with a knife to grab the gun and, oh, you're going to scare me? Okay, I guess I am scared, because like I said, he probably was ignorant of what really was going on. Oh man, they got knives. Go inside the house, go get your gun. You might not shoot that person, but you shoot outside all these times. 21 times. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. People trying to scare him, coming at him, approaching him with weapons. Now he's going to get his weapon and shoot so many times. And now, they feel like they can do it in return. Because the more that he continued to speak, it was just making it worse. It was just making it worse. And when I say it was making it worse, him speaking, I think it was because of the ignorance that he had at not having a full understanding of what really was going on. Like he knew something was going on, but I mean, these people wanted him to react the way that he did to get himself killed. But if he would have just been like, you know what, when I talked about Moses and Moses confronting Pharaoh and having that faith and not having a weapon, that's a big deal because weapons scare people. And I'm sure people approaching him with knives probably scared him to make him want to get it. Usually, when you see a person, not all the time, but usually when you see a person reach for their gun, they're probably in fear of their life, including police officers. I don't. Oftentimes, I don't think police officers reaching to their gun because they want to kill you. They reaching towards their gun because someone's probably approaching them, and they probably feel like they're in fear of their life, like they have to grab the gun. And I think that's probably what happened with him. Yep, that's what I believe. So next subheading I want to go into. Hopefully, I don't make this longer than 3 hours. Wow, told y'all there's a lot of information and I talk a lot. But my goal is to not go past 3 hours because it's like you watching a movie and I ain't trying to, you know. Anyways, what does science teach us? Well, I love this. Newton's third law of motion states that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. For an example, if you slap someone, most likely you will get slapped in return. It's just going to happen. It's possible you can get slapped by someone other than the person you slapped. I'm telling you. I want to give you an example of what I'm talking about. And I'll tell you this. In school, I did not like science. And I think it was because the teachers bored me so much. Just the way they taught that made the class, like, it made me feel like I was suffering in my chair. I did not like science. However, reading the Newton's third law, I really like that because it coincides and it aligns with what the scriptures teach about you reap what you sow. Whatever you put out there is going to come back to you in return. And so it's accurate. I'm not saying everything that they teach in that class may be accurate. However, this right here is accurate. I know that for a fact. And I'll tell you why. I'm going to give you an example. So we have person A, person B, and person C. I'm gonna be person A. So, all right. So let's say I'm person A and I decide to slap person B. B chooses not to slap me back in return. However, person C sees this. They see what happened. And they decide to slap me instead. So, person B is like, you know what? I ain't falling for it. Girl, you play too much. I ain't about to hit you. No. Mm-mm. The person C sees it and it's like, oh, you want to put your hands on somebody? Psh. And it's like, wait a minute. I didn't slap person C, but they slapped me. Is that fair? Well, according to the law of physics, it's accurate. And that slap has to be returned to the sender somehow. It has to be. It's funny. But it's serious. I mean, it's true. I find it very unbelievable or less likely that a person A would get slapped if there was no slap to begin with. However, it is possible because Jesus got slapped by the Roman soldiers, which today, might be officers or whatever. But in their time, they were the Roman soldiers who arrested him. So when we get arrested, it's by officers. So it's the people that were arresting him. He got slapped. Jesus got slapped. Because they felt like he had an attitude. And it was the way he was responding. I'm telling you, some of those responses kind of sound a little bit arrogant the more you read it. It's like, whoa. And so they slapped him. I just don't ever see that happening to me. It's very unlikely for it to happen. unless I slap someone first. I truly believe that. Like, I don't, I don't see nobody slapping me unless I'd slap someone first. I have my experience with this. Ooh, if I told y'all a situation that happened, oh my God, it's gonna make me, oh my God. I don't think I want to say that. It's gonna make me look so bad. I don't think I'm ready to say nothing like that on this episode, but I'll just say that I do have experiences of stuff like this happening. Yeah. And maybe about the past 5 years, I have not been in any kind of fights or anything, no physical altercations. No one has attacked me physically, and it's probably because I'm not attacking anybody physically. Uh, as I mentioned before, it's found in the Bible too that whatever a person reaps, they will sow. In other words, yes, whatever a person does will be done unto them. That's I'm sure y'all aware of that scripture, but if you read Galatians chapter 6, verse 7 through 9, it'll mentions what a person sows, they shall reap. Whatever you do will happen to you in return. And it might not be from that person, it might be from somebody else. Because guess what? People are watching, and someone else might see, like I said, that slap. They might see it and they might justify or feel like they can justify it because they saw you slap someone. So now they're slapping you. Oh my God, I'm laughing, but it's true. That's like with him getting shot 21 times. I'm like, okay, something had to have happened. He had to have used them guns that he had. Even if he didn't kill nobody, something had to have happened. I just know it. Because God only allows what he allows to happen. People are not more powerful than him. If God can save Moses, save Noah, save Job, protect them during the worst opposition and persecution, he could do that with anybody. But the moment we start picking up guns, purchasing guns, and relying on guns, then we're not looking to God for guidance. We're leaning on our own understanding. And that's when we lose our protection from God. That's what happened with Malcolm X, unfortunately. I want to talk about. Okay, I'm almost done, y'all. I'm seriously almost done. Uh, okay. Before I continue on this, the part two, which is my experience and testimony, I want to mention this real quick because I almost forgot last week. Um, I did not mention a small part in that last week's episode about um, the experience. It made me think of this. This is very important that I share this. I had an experience um, with when I mentioned the experience with Caucasian people, where I would like to call them lighter skinned people because we're all humans. We're all the same human race. So I want to call them lighter skinned people, but just know that when I say lighter skin, I'm not referring to myself. I'm referring to white people, or what they call white people. But I mentioned uh, I mentioned the good experiences that I've had with lighter skinned people. Then I mentioned the bad experience I've had with African American people, especially African American boys, feeling bullied or just hated by them for some reason. And I'm not going to say it's made me hate them, but it kind of did shape my perspective on the way I view African American people. I mentioned that. feeling hated by your own kind or whatever, you know. And I just want to say this: if anybody asks me, because I think I seen this question recently, and I was kind of first hesitant on how to answer the question. If someone's like, what race do you associate yourself with the most, or something like that, I wouldn't even say African American, because knowing that I'm half Caucasian and half African or whatever the hell, I'm brown, nigga. So, no, but seriously, just knowing that I'm half Caucasian and I have had many good experiences as a child with Caucasian, lighter skinned people, I would feel like it's messed up and disrespectful to myself and to those people to just say I only associate myself with African American people, because that's not all what I am. So I wouldn't even want to, and it's not just having a hate for African American people. That's not what that is. It's mainly just appreciating the good experiences that I've had with lighter skinned people and owning who I am. It's half of what I am. So I don't want to just associate myself with just that doesn't make any sense, because that's not all what I am. I just want to say I'm everything, because I'm all for all people. And the fact that I am biracial, it just makes it even better, because now I don't have this bias towards one or the other. However, I do have that experience that has shaped the way I do view a lot of African American people. Not all of them. Not all of them. Anyways, that's what I was talking about last week. And so and I just wanted to mention a little bit, just in case you didn't see the episode. But so what I wanted to re-mention, some of the part that I did not mention, is the officer when I went to a different state, a southern state, because I had to think about it. Because I have experience with officers being really nice to me, being understanding, and I'm talking about Caucasian ones. Looking like I look in their eyes and it looks like they have some empathy for me somehow, some way. But when I went in another state and encountered what I did with those officers just telling me to leave, and they didn't care to hear nothing I had to say, when I mentioned I was shocked, because I'm not used to that. I'm not. Even when they're Caucasian, I'm used to them being nice to me. But I had to, and that's when I hate to say it like Malcolm X, they refused to let me back on the bus. And I was upset, like, oh, that's messed up. I need to get back to California. Y'all gonna try to tell me I can't get back on the bus? I got a ticket. So I was upset. And I ended up getting actually stuck out there, stranded for maybe about 8 or 9 months or something. Right? Okay. What I did not mention, I was thinking about this recently, trying to understand and meditate on why those officers were so cold to me. And then the situation I had in California, when there was a police officer that, from what I recall, I believe he was a police officer that got slapped by somebody. I remember looking at his face, and he was really angry. And I could, even at that time, I felt like I was being discriminated against and receiving some injustice by the way the janitor lady was treating me in the restroom, and not having any empathy of what I was going through as a woman. But when he arrived, he was like, I could see a lot of anger in his face, and he just looked like, oh, let me at her, like that. And I was like, maybe that anger he had is probably what prompted a slap. Maybe. Because it put fear in me. I'm not used to seeing officers mad at me. But it looked like a personal thing. Like he was really angry. Like, oh, so grabbing on my arm and stuff. He already was angry before it didn't have, it wasn't just about what happened in the restroom and, oh, I'm trying to clean myself. I'm bleeding. Help me. I'm bleeding. I want to clean it was something deeper than that. And I had to think back to the events. I was thinking about this recently. I'm like, Destiny, what did you do? And I don't want to go into too much detail about this because what I will say is what happens in the past. Sometimes some things need to just stay in the past. Some things. Okay? Some things that are already open for the public to know when a person does their time. They did the crime, now they do their time. Okay. It's already public knowledge. I can talk about it. But there's some things that I really feel like probably just don't need to say and just leave it in the past. That's why I want to be as vague as possible. There were events that happened before that situation happened. Being in the streets, can probably frustrate anybody, especially when they don't have support or family to go to or no stable environment or loving family, people that actually really genuinely care. It could probably frustrate somebody and, oh, now I got to start all over, that type of thing. There were events that happened before the slap that I kind of forgot about. I didn't forget completely about it, but I forgot that it could have been associated with that police officer being upset with me. And now when I think about it, I'm like, oh snap. It's possible he could have been aware of what had happened before that day. He could have been very aware of the events that happened to where it's like, let me get her, because it didn't start in the restroom. It started before that. And, I have to remind myself, there's cameras everywhere. There's always somebody watching. Whatever you do, someone's going to see. Even if you're going through something, you're frustrated, just know that when you don't think there's a camera, there probably is. When you don't think there's no one watching, it probably is. So you better be careful the next time you decide to pick your nose in public. And you got a booger, because there might be someone right around the corner doing that. Oh, did you see her? She just, So in that situation, I'm like, oh, that's why he was mad. He probably knew. I mean, the reason why I say this is because police officers are very smart. They're smart. They're very intelligent. Word gets around. When there's cameras and stuff, word gets around. And this is how I really feel about it. I mean, me going in another state and being treated like that, yeah, I would think that it's possible those people could have been aware too what was going on, because, I mean, think about it with Malcolm X's story and those French authorities not want to let him in. They were aware of what was going on with him in the U.S. They really was trying to protect him, even though he didn't see it like that at the time. That's what they were doing. But they were aware of it, because police officers, whether it's undercover or just a regular police officer or FBI, CIA, whatever it is, they have a way of knowing what we do every day. That's why we should be trying to do the right thing anyways. Because really, my main focus is, how does God see me? I want to be in the afterlife again, after this life, and I want to live forever. That's my what's important to me. So if people are watching and the calls are being recorded or whatever, there's undercovers. It's like, I think it's all an act of God, because if we're aware of that and we change our behavior and like, oh snap, let me not do that because people see they watching it, oh, my every move, oh, then it's going to make a person more conscious of wanting to do the right thing. Like, because sometimes talking to them about God is not good enough. You know, telling a person, God, you know, he sees what you're doing. I don't think it's that real, especially to the youth. Because if they don't see him, it might not be that real to them. You know? Oh, okay, yeah, God can see me, yeah. But if they know there's cameras, or if they really know the call is being recorded, I mean, if they really know that they're really being watched by everybody else, they might think twice about committing a crime if they really know. And some people do know, but they don't care. Some people know. Some people do know, but they just maybe they just dumb. I don't know. I mean, because if a person really, I mean, I think that's when my life really began to change. Is when I realized that. Like it happened with me. It wasn't just the Bible. I already believed in God for a while. It had a lot to do with knowing that other people can see what I'm doing every day, and it made me embarrassed to know, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. You know, it kind of made me kind of embarrassed, very embarrassing to want to say or do certain things. So it wouldn't be no shock or surprise if I go out of state. Let's say some bad things happen out here and I go out of state and then someone's not letting me get back on the bus and I feel like I'm being discriminated against or treated unfairly by these Caucasian officers. I'm going to think about the situation that happened in another state, and these people might be aware of it. And now they're looking at me as a threat because they saw how I reacted to other things that happened in my past. So now they're looking at me as a threat. And so with that situation, I believe that now the more I think about it, it's like, okay, I could be like a lot of million other Americans and be like, I was treated unfair. This is not right. I was discriminated against. This is, there's no justice. I want justice. Those officers. But at the same time, I try to find a way of blaming myself to think of what did I do to cause that to happen. And I think that helps me change to continue to keep getting better as a person. Because, like I said, even though it was unfair treatment, there were things that happened before that happened. So now I understand. I understand. But you know, the good thing when I say it's God, it's a godly, divine, godly order. A blessing came out of those officers not telling me to leave and not wanting me to go back on the Greyhound bus. It was a blessing because I got baptized in that state the following year. So it was supposed to happen. It was a blessing. And hey, you know, I'm not trying to keep comparing stories, but it does make me think of Malcolm X. So if I start laughing, it might be for that reason of the French authorities not letting him into France because they was trying to protect him. Maybe God knew it wasn't my time to come back out here to California. Maybe he wanted me to calm myself down, find a way to react differently to bad things happening in my life. I really believe that. Because after getting baptized, I did, you know, being stuck out there in a different state and feeling like, oh my God, I have to rely on God. I ain't got nobody to go to. I have nobody else but God. That was what being in the shelter for that long and no family, nothing. I had no choice but to depend on God. I had no choice. I wasn't about to hook or nothing. Nope. I didn't get nobody's Nope. I did not get in nobody's, when I say nobody's car, I mean to sell my body. I didn't do none of that. Being outside in the cold, that I was determined to put God first. So I'm the more I think about the situation with the officers in that southern state, uh, I'm not upset, or I'm really not, because sometimes we have to look at ourselves. What did you do to cause that? Not everything is all a person's fault. A Christian can still face a lot of persecution and opposition just because they decide to be a Christian or to do the right thing. They're going to get it even more. But I believe that had a lot to do with other events that already happened. I really believe that. So, but a person has to be able to discern the difference of injustice, like persecution because you're simply being a Christian and you're doing the right thing, versus persecution because you did something that led up to officers refusing to let you enter somewhere. Something had to do something. So, and that's another reason of my experience why, when I was thinking about Malcolm X and them refusing entry, I'm like, okay, he was receiving all those threats at that time. So, somebody had to make him so mad. He probably reacted in a way it's probably not documented, that, and I think it was involving that gun. I'm pretty sure. I really believe that they knew about it. So that's how I feel about that. I meditate a lot, and I believe that meditation helps me get a clear understanding of the things that have happened in my life, in other people's life, and it helps me react differently to things that happen. Okay, so I want to talk about this might go past 3 hours, but um, hopefully it don't. It might. I want to talk about my experience with guns. Okay, so to be honest with you, guns and weapons, they make me feel extremely uncomfortable. The closer I am to them. In my 34 years of living, I have never owned or touched a firearm. I've never touched a firearm or owned anything such as a gun. I see them, and I'm saying, in this life, living in this life, never touched a gun. I've seen them often in the movies. I see them a lot in the movies, but it's really rare for me to actually see a gun in person. That's really rare. Like, I don't think maybe when I was a child, but to actually, well, actually, when I see officers or security like that, but actually someone on the street holding a real gun and I walk past and I see it, or I witness someone killing someone, I don't ever see stuff like that. Ever. Ever. I see it a lot on the news or in the movies, but I don't ever, ever, ever see it. Ever. I believe that a person should be very, very, very knowledgeable, trained, and only use them for self-defense purposes. Like, me mentioning police officers. I mean, they should be really trained. Now, I know what you're thinking. But Destiny, what about the chicken? My response, well, what about the chicken? I know you like it. I like chicken too. But I'm sure there's several other ways to kill an animal for meat. And I'm talking about to eat the chicken, in case you're wondering what I'm talking about.
I've heard people going deer hunting, using weapons, guns for deer hunting, maybe a rifle or something. But I was thinking about this the other day, and I'm like, how did they used to kill people back in the day for meat when they didn't have guns? They killed them a chicken or something, not with no gun. If somebody have to chase, or not even chase, if they have to shoot a deer to kill it, it probably shouldn't be something they should be eating. This is my opinion. I'm just trying to make sense out of this, okay? Because I know God wouldn't want us to rely on guns to even get our food. He wouldn't want that. So it's like if you feel like, oh, I gotta shoot this deer to get the food so I can eat it and go deer hunting. That makes no sense to me. I was thinking about this the other day. Um, uh, okay, so I like chicken. And when you think about a chicken, it's slow. Like it can walk around and you can go chase it and use a knife or slaughter, kill it the way you want to kill it to eventually eat it, however they package it up and put it in a grocery store, right? A chicken is slow. You can do that. Oh, here, come here, chicken. And you catch the chicken. A cow is slow. What you see when you see a cow, it's like moo, and it's walking slow. These are animals that are easy to catch, and then you kill them. I don't think God wanted it to be so difficult for us to catch it to where we got to shoot it. Then that's when I question if we should even be eating it or not, right? Then I think about fish. We could eat fish, but the fish under the water, they're really fast. Like when they swim, they're like this. Like they're really fast, you know? However, people still have found throughout history a way to catch fish. Right? Putting something under the water and you bring up the fish. But I will want to mention this, make this known. It's already been known, but just mention it again. Even some of the disciples, they needed Jesus' help to catch as many fish as they did. They were already fishermen, some of them. That's why he said, I want to make you fisher. I think he said fishers of men or something. Like to catch disciples. Instead of catching fish, I'm going to have y'all catch disciples and bring all these disciples in and follow. You know how to bring in fish. Now I'm going to teach you how to bring in men. And we can get all these followers. That's what he was trying to teach him. But Jesus was so powerful. His whole essence, everything about him, the animals gravitated towards him. It's like Noah. Like God, really God-fearing people, that's what happens. With Noah, the reason why animals, they just went along with him into the ark is because of that power that he had. And that's what happens when a person's that God-fearing and they're that close to God, they developed the power. They might not start off with the power. They develop it. And if it does seem like they start off with it, just know it gets stronger and stronger. It gets more powerful. So with Jesus, he was so powerful that the fish, they were shocked as about how many fish that they were able to catch when they was with him, because the fish just gravitated towards his essence, his energy. They felt the energy of the Messiah and they just gravitated to it, and that's how they was able to catch all that fish. It's the same thing. Him wanting to bring in more followers and disciples, he has that way of doing that. That's what he was trying to teach them. But anyways, not to go off topic talking about that, but my main talking about guns here is you don't need a gun to catch fish, right? So that was just something I thought about is you have to question usually when there's a gun involved, you have to question it.
Like, if people were able to live without guns, why do we feel like we need them now? There were weapons that the Roman soldiers had when Jesus was here in the first century. They weren't guns. They had swords and stuff. But it was their career. They had to have it because of them being a soldier, a Roman soldier. It's just the same with a police officer. The type of work that they do, I believe, is the same thing. It's so many people that I think I'm going to go into this next. Uh, yeah, I think that's a part of my. I'm gonna have a